Greetings everyone, here's the presentation of Group 4. But before we proceed to our discussion, let me introduce my members. Michelle Andrea Abay, Ashera Gwyneth Cala, Kenneth Del Mundo, Regina Rose Gata, Sheena Rosento, Mary Rose Weza, and I am Anthea Abonsol. Have you ever faced a challenge that seemed impossible to overcome? What if I told you that the key to solving any problem lies not in finding the answer, but in knowing the right strategy to approach it? Today, we're going to explore how mastering problem solving strategies can not only help you tackle complex challenges, but also empower you to think critically, act confidently, and achieve better outcomes, no matter the situation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just someone who loves a good puzzle, the right approach can make all the difference. Let's dive in and discover how to turn obstacles into opportunities. One of the strategies we use in mathematics is the Polias problem-solving strategies. This systematic strategy in solving mathematical problems came out of the imagination of Hungarian mathematician George Polya in his book How to Solve It, published in 1945. It is a set of 4 key steps to succeed in solving any mathematical problem. Each step promotes critical thinking, logical reasoning, and metacognitive skills. In understanding the problem, it explains the problem in your own words. Restatement of a problem is important in Polya's problem-solving approach since it clarifies jargon that may be confusing, key details that one should remember, and breaks information into easily manageable parts. It therefore simplifies wording, renders the problem accessible, and reduces errors, providing an easier direction for solving. It also identifies known types of problems. In Polya's strategy of solving strategies and solving problems, identification of the type of problem leads the approach of forgetting an effective solution strategy by classifying whether the problem is algebraic, geometric, optimization, based probability, statistic, or purely logical. One can reduce complexity and save time. Such classification leads to increased efficiency as well as leveraging the experience prior. It also identifies information missing to solve the problem. The identification of missing information is very important in problem solving. It allows one to identify necessary data or relationships, hence focusing on the right information, preventing errors, and directing the approach, which makes the problem solving process more efficient and effective. It also identifies extraneous information that needed to solve the problem. It helps in avoiding distractions. Sometimes problems present extra data that doesn't help in solving the question. Recognizing this allows you to stay focused on the necessary aspects, making the problem simpler and more manageable. It also helps in simplifying the process and clarity of focus. It also helps in determining the objective, clarifying what you're solving for. You need to identify what the problem is asking for. For example, a numerical answer, a proof, or an expression. This focus guides you toward the right solution pathway. Choosing the right approach, understanding the objective helps you select the best method to solve the problem, whether it's using algebra, drawing a diagram, applying a formula, or reasoning logically. In the second step, devise a plan, Polya emphasizes creating a structured approach to solving the problem. It helps to identify known and needed information. In this step, it is important to first identify the information you already have, the knowns, and what you still need, the unknowns. By doing this, you can focus your efforts on finding the missing pieces. Draw diagrams or sort possibilities. Visualizing the problem through diagrams or sorting out possibilities can provide insight that might not be immediately clear from the text alone. Diagrams can help you picture relationships, structures, or patterns, making the problem easier to handle. Create tables or charts. Creating tables or charts helps organize information systematically, which is especially useful when dealing with large amounts of data or multiple variables. They allow you to visually compare and analyze different pieces of information. Solve easier problems by working backward. If the problem seems complex, solving an easier version of the problem or working backward from the desired outcome can help. By reserving the steps, you can often find a path to the solution. Look for patterns. Many problems contain inherent patterns that can simplify the solution process. Recognizing these patterns can lead to shortcuts or reveal the best method for solving the problem. Write equations with statements of variables. Writing equations with clearly defined variables translate the problem into mathematical terms. This abstraction can simplify the problem and provide a roadmap to the solution. Experimentations. Experimentation involves trying different methods or approaches to see what works. This trial and error approach can sometimes yield surprising insights or solutions, especially when other methods are unclear. Lastly, is to try to guess the solutions then check your answer. Making an educated guesses about the solution followed by checking your answer is an effective strategy, especially when the problem involves numerical or approximate solutions. In Polya's problem-solving strategy, the third step, carry out the plan, where you actively implement the plan you've devised to solve the problem. This phase is about taking action, staying focused, and adjusting your approach when necessary. Work carefully. Working carefully is crucial in ensuring that the solution is accurate. After you've devised a plan, it's important to follow through with each step methodically, without rushing or making unnecessary assumptions. Record all attempts accurately. As you implement your plan, it's important to keep track of every step, calculation, or action you take. Writing things down accurately ensures that you can trace your progress, evaluate your work, and spot any mistakes. Admit failure to initial plans. Sometimes, despite careful planning, the solution path might not lead to success. Acknowledging that the initial plan may not work is an important step toward adjusting your approach. Think of alternative or change plans. If your initial plan doesn't lead to success, you must think of alternative strategies or adjust your plan accordingly. Problem solving is often iterative, and being able to pivot when necessary is key. This step is about flexibility and creativity. If a particular approach isn't working, looking for alternative solution helps you find the right way forward. The last step is to review the solution. This step involves looking back at the solution to ensure its correctness and to reflect on its broader implications. It ensures that you haven't overlooked any aspects of the problem and that the solution makes sense both in context and as a part of a larger mathematical or conceptual framework. It helps in verifying that the solution fits the facts of the problem. After you've reached a solution, it's essential to check that it actually answers the original problem correctly. This involves comparing your solution with the conditions and facts presented in the problem to ensure consistency. For example, if you're solving a distance problem and your solution indicates a time or distance that doesn't make sense, then something went wrong in the process. Verifying the solution ensures the result is feasible and aligns with the initial data. It also helps in interpreting the solution in terms of the problem. Once the solution has been obtained, it's critical to interpret it in the context of the original problem. This means understanding what the solution really represents and ensuring it answers the problem's questions in a meaningful way. For example, in a problem involving the speed of a car, if your solution provides a speed in meters per second but the problem asks for kilometers per hour, you'd need to convert the units to match the question's requirements. Interpreting the solution ensures you present it in the form needed to answer the question. Lastly, it considers generalizations to other problems. This final part of the review involves reflecting on the solution's broader applicability. It encourages thinking about how the methods or concepts used to solve this problem can be generalized or applied to other problems of a similar or different nature. For example, if you've solved a quadratic equation using factoring, you might consider whether the same factoring approach could apply to other quadratic equations or if the solution process can be extended to higher degree polynomials. You may also consider how the concept you use, like identifying factors or solving for roots, can be applied to problems in algebra, geometry, or even real life situations.
And now, let's proceed with the making a list. My name is Ashira Ganet Escala, and I'm going to discuss this topic. Making a list is a way to organize data presented in a problem. This problem-solving strategy allows students to discover relationships and patterns among data. This strategy helps students to bring a logical and systematic development to their mathematics. Let's proceed with problem number 1. You have 5 subjects: math, English, science, history, and art for an upcoming exam, and you can only study 3 subjects in one day. Create a list of all the subjects you must study over the next week. By applying the Polya strategy step-by-step solution, this is how we are going to solve this problem by following the 4 steps of Polya's problem-solving strategy. Number 1. Understand the problem. We are supposed to come up with a study plan for a week that covers 3 subjects a day. Each subject is supposed to be covered at least once in the week. The plan should ensure all 5 subjects are covered in 7 days. Number 2. Devise a plan. Identify the constraints. 7 days in a week, 3 subjects can be studied per day and 5 subjects in total that need to be covered at least once. And also, by creating a strategy, spread out the subjects over the 7 days and have every subject appear on any given day of the week. Number 3. Carry out the plan. First of all, let's begin by making a schedule of each day with the following rule in mind. At least one of the subjects has to appear on any given day of the week. Day 1, Monday, we have math, English, and science. Day 2, Tuesday, we have history, art, and math. Day 3, we have Wednesday, English, science, and history. Day 4, we have Thursday, art, math, English. Day 5, Friday, we have science, history, and art. Day 6, Saturday, we have math, English, and science. And for the last day, Sunday, we have history, art, and math. For the verification of this, we have math studied on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday 5 times this week. For English, we have studied on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday 4 times this week. Science studied on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday 4 times this week. History studied on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday 3 times this week. And art studied on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday 3 times this week. And for the last step, the review the solution. Balance the plan if all the topics have been covered at least once this week. The same topic is covered more than once, this guaranteeing coverage. Check for balance. If it is ensured that no subject is neglected too much and is covered throughout the week. If certain topics need more concentration, then the schedule needs to be adjusted and more time allocated on those days. For the final schedule for week, we have Day 1, Monday, Math, English, Science. Day 2, Tuesday, History, Art, Math. Day 3, Wednesday, English, Science, History. Day 4, Thursday, Art, Math, English. Day 5, Friday, Science, History, Art. Day 6, Saturday, we have Math, English, Science. And Day 7, Sunday, we have History, Art, and Math. Thus, all subjects can be covered by having a proper repetitions with just not being over the constraints if not doing more than 3 subjects in a day. And now, let's proceed with the problem number 2. There will be 5 teams playing in the regional football tournament. Each team is scheduled to play every other team once. How many games are scheduled for the tournament? Problem number 1. We are supposed to come up with a schedule for regional football tournament. Each team is scheduled to play other team once. The plan is to know how many games are scheduled for the tournament. Number 2, devise a plan. 5 teams should play each other teams. By creating a strategy, an organized list, we can identify how many games are scheduled for the tournament. Number 3, carry out the plan. Let's begin by making a list of each teams. We have Team A, Team B, Team C, Team D, and Team E. For Team A, we have Team A versus Team B, Team A versus Team C, Team A versus Team D, and Team A versus Team E. For the Team B, since Team A and Team B cannot play by itself, so we have Team B versus Team C, Team B versus Team D, Team B versus Team E. For Team C, we have Team C versus Team D, Team C versus Team E. And for the Team D, we have Team D versus Team E. And now, let's count all these teams. For Team A, we have 4. For Team B, we have 3. For Team C, we have 2. For Team D, we have 1. And for Team E, we have 0. So, 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 10.
Alright, so I am Sheena Rosento and I will discuss about making a diagram. So, as we learned in mathematics, diagrams are visual representations of word problems that help the problem solver to see the information they have so they can figure out the information they don't have. So, making a diagram is using a visual representation of mathematical equations or problems in math. So, yes, let's proceed to problem number 1. So, in making a diagram example for a problem here is you are setting up chairs for a small meeting. You want to arrange them in a rectangular with more rows than columns. If you have 24 chairs, what are the possible rectangular arrangements? So, in applying the um, Polius solving strategies, so step 1, we have to understand the problem. So we need to find all possible rectangular arrangements of 24 chairs where the number of rows is greater than the number of columns. And the number of chairs in each row represents the number of columns and the number of rows is the number of rows. The total number of chairs is the product of rows and columns. So, yun yung kinakailangan natin na maintindihan na ano yung tinatanong doon sa problem. Kung meron daw tayong 24 chairs, ilang possible rectangular arrangement kaya yung mabubuo natin. And step 2 is devising a plan. So, we need to find pairs of factors of 24 kasi yun yung total number ng chairs na meron tayo, which is nagre-represent siya sa number of 4, yung factor na hanapin natin is larger than the other factor. Nagpa-present naman siya sa number of columns. So we can list the factors of 24 and check with pair satisfy this condition. And a diagram can help visualize each arrangement. So mamaya makikita natin yung diagram or visual representation ng problem solution. So like for example, the factors of 24 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. So let's consider pairs of factors where rows is greater than columns. So like for example, the 24 times 1, this represents 24 rows and 1 column. Actually, not a practical rectangle, but mathematically valid. Hindi siya makakabuo ng rectangular arrangement ng chairs. So, meron namang tayong 12 times 2. And this represents 12 rows and 2 columns. And the other one is 8 times 3. This represents 8 rows and 3 columns. And then 6 times 4. This represents 6 rows and 4 columns. So, here is the visual representation of the problem and the solution. So 8 times 3, my 8 rows and 3 rows and 8 columns. Yan yung arrangement number 1 ng chairs. And then yung second is 12 times 2. So we have 2 rows with 12 columns. Ito naman yung representation niya. Yung dalawa lang yung columns. And then the 6 times 4. Yan yung rectangular arrangement na. So, and going to step number 4, looking back. So, ano nga ba yung, di ba, yung hinahanap natin doon? So, the answer is there are 3 possible rectangular arrangements. The first one is 12 rows and 2 columns. The second one is 8 rows and 3 columns. And then the third one is 6 rows and 4 columns. So, yan yung diagram or visual presentation of the problem number 1. So, yes, 3 rectangular arrangement yung possible na mabuo ng isang chairs or 24 chairs sa isang meetings. And then, let's proceed to example or problem number 2. And here's the problem. So, you need to paint a fence that is 12 feet long and 6 feet tall. You have a paint can that covers 100 square feet. Will you have enough paint? Ayan yung problem number 2. So, in applying the polio strategies, yung step 1 natin is to understand the problem. We need to figure out if you have enough paint to cover the entire fence. To do that, we need to calculate the area of the fence and compare it to the coverage of the paint can. Yun. Ayan. Yan yung visual representation or diagram ng problem number 2. So we have here the rectangular shape. Yes, it has yung fence ay 12 feet 12 feet yung haba niya and yung taas niya naman ay 6 feet. So we have to calculate the area. So ang formula niya ay area is equals to length times width. And then kung isa-substitute natin siya into numbers, mayroon tayong 12 feet times 6 feet. So, i-times natin yung 12 times 6 is equals to 72. So, meron tayong 72 square feet ng coral or fence. Ayan. So, next. Ayan, the step number 4. So, looking back. So, since the fence area is smaller than the paint, fence coverage, you have enough paint to cover the entire fence. So, inahanap, di ba, kung kaya ba na mapintahan or mapinturahan yung coral na 72 square feet long or yung size niya. And meron lang yung magfe-fence na or magpipintura ng 100 na total na yung pwedeng ipang pintura. So, yes, you have enough paint kasi 72 lang yung result nun or yung size nun and meron siyang 100 or I mean like para sa 100 na size nung fence. And that's all for the problem number 1 and problem number 2 in applying or making a diagram.
Okay, so now let's proceed to the next topic. By the way, my name is Kenneth S. L. Del Mundo and I will be discussed making a table. So before we proceed, let us define first what is a table. So a table is a way of presenting information or data using rows horizontal and columns vertical. A table has a grid structure with information sitting inside the cells. So when we say table, um, ito yung binubuo siya ng rows and columns. So nakakatulong itong table sa pag-organize and para mas maging clear tingnan yung mga data or information na ilalagay natin dito. So we have here problem number 1. A company has 100 employees who work in 3 different departments: sales, marketing, and customer support. The number of employees in each department is as follows: sales has 35 employees, marketing has 25 employees. How many employees work on customer support? So first, we need to understand the problem. What is the question asking? Ano ba yung tinatanong? Let's back again to the problem. So dito is tinatanong kung ilan daw ba yung employees ang nagtatrabaho sa customer support. So next, what information is given? Ano ba yung mga binigay dito na given? So dito is nakalagay sa problem is mayroong 100 employees, and sa sales mayroong 35 employees, sa marketing meron namang 25 employees. So yan na yung given. So, what are the unknowns? So, ano daw yung wala or yung hindi pa natin mahanap? So, ang hindi pa natin alam dito or hindi pa natin um, nahanap is yung total employees na nagtatrabaho sa customer support. Ayan. So, after we understand the problem, we need to devise a plan. Ano ba yung operation na gagamitin natin? Eto, subtract the total number of employees in sales marketing from the total to determine how many work in customer support. So, kailangan natin na isubtract yung total number ng employees sa sales marketing mula sa total, which is yung 100, to determine how many work in customer support. Eto na nga, kailangan natin ditong gumawa ng design, which is yung pag-create ng table para mas lalo nating maintindihan yung kasagutan. So, eto na siya. Dito sa table, makikita natin na naka-organize na and nakalagay na rin yung mga information, yung given na nandun sa problem. Number 3 is carry out the plan. Ito na nga, design a table to facilitate summarizing data. So, dito is naka-summarize na yung mga data and need na lang natin na i-compute kung magkano ba yung total number of employee, yung total number of employees sa customer support. Sa problem nga, meron tayong sa sales merong 35 na employees, sa marketing naman merong 25 employees. Sa customer support is nakalagay is question mark, so hindi pa natin alam. So dapat ang maging total is 100 para maging tama yung sagot natin. The number of employees in a customer support can be determined by subtracting the sum of sales and marketing employees from total. So, number of employees in customer support is 100. So, to calculate, number of employees in customer support is equal nga to 100 minus ito nga 35 plus 25 is equal to 60 plus 40. So, bakit naging 40? Kasi siya na lang yung kulang para maging 100. So, kapag inad natin yung 60 plus 40, ang total niya is 100. So, number 4, review the solution. Check the solution. So, the number of employees in customer support is 40. So, it's check out since there are 100 total employees. Next is verify the method. Confirm that the calculation was done correctly and that the table really organized the table well. Next is think about the problem. The solution makes sense and the table made it easy to visualize and solve the problem. So, ganun lang kasimple yung paggawa ng table and pag-solve ng problem dahil gumamit tayo ng table and dahil dito is mas na-summarize yung mga data mula sa problem. So next, we have a problem number 2 here. A movie theater has 3 different ticket prices. $10 for adults, $7 for children, and $8 for seniors. On Saturday, 200 adults, 150 children, and 80 seniors bought tickets. How much money did the theater make from ticket sales that day? So, sabi daw dito, yung movie theater ay nagbebenta ng tatlong magkakaibang ticket prices, which is yung $10 for adults, $7 for children, and $8 for seniors. So, nung Sabado, may bumiling 200 na adults and 150 children and 80 seniors na mga tickets. Magkano raw yung yung kinita nung theater sa araw na yon. Okay, so first we need to understand the problem. So calculate the total revenue from ticket sales based on the ticket prices and number of tickets sold. Next is we need to devise a plan. So here we need to create a table to organize the ticket sales data and calculate the revenue for each ticket type. Next, carry out the plan. So dito is gagawa ulit tayo ng table para mas lalo nating maintindihan and mas summarize yung mga given na binigay dun sa problem number 2. So, makikita natin sa table yung ticket type, number sold, price per ticket, and total revenue. So, sa ticket type, naka-include dito yung adult, children's, and seniors, which is nandun siya sa problem. So, sa number sold naman, naka-include dito yung 200, 150, and 80, which is nandun din sa problem. Sa price per ticket naman, is naka-include dito yung $10, $7, and $8, which is ito yung price ng ticket. So, eto sa total revenue naman, paano ba nakuha itong $2,000, $1,050, and $640? So, yan yung aalamin natin. So, dito, ang ginawa para makuha yung $2,000, $1,050, and $640 is minultiply siya sa number sold and price per ticket. So, as you can see here, kung makikita nyo itong number of sold, which is 200, 150, and 80, at itong price per ticket na $10, $7, and $8, is minultiply sila. Kaya nakuha yung total revenue. So, 200 multiplied by 10 is equal to $2,000. 150 multiplied by 7 is $1,050. 80 multiplied by $8 is equal to $640. So, next na gagawin para makuha na talaga yung pinaka-total amount ng tickets na nabili sa araw na yon is we need to add this total revenue. So, $2,000 plus $1,050 plus $640 is equal to $3,690. So, the final answer is the theater makes the total amount of $3,690 ticket sales that day. Yan yung final answer. So, ganun lang kasimple yung pag-solve ng problem sa pamamagitan ng paggawa ng table and pag-apply ng Polyo's problem-solving strategy.
So, alright. I'm Michelle Andrea L. Abay. So, I will introduce to all of you the trying to solve similar but simple problem.
Trying to solve similar but simple problem in Polya solving problem strategy. Problem solving is a skill we all need in life, whether in school or in everyday situation. One helpful way to solve problem is by using Polya strategy. This method breaks down a problem into small, simple steps so we can figure it out clearly. Through understanding the problem, devising a plan, and reviewing the solution, we can gain clarity and confidence in our answer. This structured approach not only makes it easier to find the solution, but also provide a framework for verifying its accuracy. By examining this example, we aim to highlight the significance of methodical problem solving and how breaking down tasks into smaller steps can lead to effective and correct outcomes. So we have an example, problem number 1. You have a jar with 24 marbles. If you want to divide the marbles evenly into 6 small bags, how many marbles will be in each bag? So, by applying Polya's strategy, first we need to understand the problem. How many marbles and how many bags? So, we have 24 marbles and 6 bags. What is being asked? How many marbles will be in each bag if the 24 marbles are divided equally? Second, we need
to devise a plan. Calculate how many marbles in each bag. Total marbles is 24 by number of bag is 6. To find how many marbles there will be in each one, we need to carry out the division. Third, we need to carry out the plan. Divide 24 by 6. So we have 4. So we will have 4 marbles in each bag. Fourth, last one, we need to review the solution or check the answer. We can multiply the number of marbles per bag by the number of bags. So 4 times 6 is 24. So we have illustration here. Yeah. We have 24 marbles, 6 bags. How many marbles will be in each bag if the 24 marbles are divided equally? So, yan yung illustration. Next, yan. Final answer, there will be 4 marbles in each of bags. So, sa kada bag, may 4 na marbles. But still, 24 marbles pa rin yung nandyan. Pero pantay-pantay pa rin yung pagkakahati. Walang kulang, walang sobra. So, problem number 2. You have 30 apples and you want to share them with 5 friends. How many apples will each friend get if you divide the apple evenly? So, yan. By applying Polya's strategy, first we need to understand the problem. How many apples? How many friends? So, we have 30 apples and 5 friends. What is being asked? How many apple will each friend receive if the 30 apple are shared equally? Second, devise a plan. To find out how many apple each friend will get, we will divide the total number of apple is 30 by the number of friend of 5. This means we will perform the division. Third, we need to carry out the plan. Divide 30 by 5. So 30 divided by 5 is equal to 6. So each friend will get 6 apples. Fourth, the last step is review the solution or check the answer. We can multiply the number of apple and each friend will get by the number of friends. So 6 times 5 is equal to 30. Yeah. Given 30 apples and 5 friends, so we have 30 apples and 5 friends. What being asked, how many apples will each friend receive if 30 apples are shared equally? So we need to divide 30 by 5. 30 apple divided by 5 friends is equal to 6 each. So each friend will get 6 apples. So, para ma-check natin, i-multiply natin into 6. Kasi tigsi 6 yung friends, so times 5 friends is equal 30 apples. Tama siya. Ano lang siya? Equally.
Another way for us to apply the Polya's problem-solving strategy is through looking for a pattern. Recognizing patterns makes solving complex problems easier and less cumbersome, as well as creates insights or generalizations. Further, it enables you to apply known solution methods. Recurrent elements can guide you into conjectures, reduce possibilities, and apply efficient strategies to find solutions. By doing this, you will be able to better solve problems and not have to reinvent the wheel. This sentence indicates that the detection of patterns makes hard problems more accessible. When a problem is recognized to be having similar elements or reiteration, then you apply your previous knowledge to easily identify the solutions. Therefore, seeing these patterns lets you guess the possible solutions, eliminate some choices, and make use of previously proven approaches. That way, instead of always starting from scratch each time, you are utilizing previous knowledge and making problem solving easier and more effective. Here is an example problem 1. Look at these figures where each figure represents dots, which form a pattern of a square. Our goal is to find out how many dots exist in the next figure in this pattern. So we notice that each new figure adds more dots to form a square shape. We need to determine the next number of dots in the sequence and identify the underlying pattern. We are going to investigate a pattern involving dots arranged in the shape of squares. Polya's strategy will guide us through solving the problem. This strategy includes understanding the problem, devising a plan, carrying out the plan, and reviewing the solution to ensure everything makes sense. We will observe how the number of dots increases in each figure and how this relates to the geometric pattern, or squares. We'll use the existing dots to predict future terms or figures in the sequence. The first step we need to perform using Polya's problem-solving strategy is to understand the problem. The given is the problem involves a series of figures with dots in which they form squares. We know that figure 1 has 1 dot, figure 2 has 4 dots, figure 3 has 9 dots, figure 4 has 16 dots, and figure 5 has 25 dots. What is being asked? Our task is to detect the number of dots of the next figure as well as recognize the law governing this pattern. The task involves figuring out how many dots are present in each figure. We know that each figure corresponds to a certain number of dots arranged in a square pattern, and we need to detect the relationship between the figure number and the number of dots. The second step to apply the Polya's problem-solving strategy is to devise a plan. To solve this, we need to first visualize the figures and understand how the dots are arranged. Are the dots arranged in a particular shape? Second, find the relationship between the number of dots and the figure number. Are the numbers related to squares or other shapes? And last is to predict the next number in the sequence using the discovered pattern. Based on the pattern we identify, we can predict the number of dots in the next figure. The third step is to carry out the plan. So we need to visualize the figures. Let's represent each figure visually to see how the dots are arranged. We notice that figure 1 has 1 dot. Figure 2 has 4 dots arranged in a 2 times 2 square. Figure 3 has 9 dots arranged in a 3 times 3 square. Figure 4 has 16 dots in a 4 times 4 square. And figure 5 has 25 dots in a 5 times 5 square. In analyzing the pattern, we observe that figure 1 is a 1 times 1 square containing 1 raised to 2 is equals to 1 dot. Figure 2 is a 2 times 2 square containing 2 raised to 2 is equals to 4 dots. Figure 3 is a 3 times 3 square containing 3 raised to 2 is equals to 9 dots. Figure 4 is a 4 times 4 square consisting of 4 raised to 2 is equals to 16 dots. And figure 5 is a 5 times 5 square consisting of 5 raised to 2 is equals to 25 dots. We notice that the number of dots in each figure is the square of the figure number, namely the nth figure consists of n squared dots. In guessing the next figure, let's observe the pattern to determine how many dots there are in figure 6. Since each figure is a square number, the total for figure 6 is 6 raised to 2 is equals to 36 dots. Thus, the next figure will be composed of 36 dots arranged in a 6 times 6 square. For the last step, we need to review the solution. Let's reflect on our problem-solving process. First is to understand the problem. We had to take a series of pictures and then find the number of dots in the next picture. To do that, we realized that the figures may be visualized as squares. The dots actually are equal to the number of squares. Next is to develop a strategy. We sketched the drawings and observed that the number of dots were perfect squares. This led to our hypothesis that the number of dots was the square of the figure number. Next is to implement the plan. We check for our hypothesis by testing the pattern for the first 5 figures and observe that the pattern indeed held. Next is the reflection. By seeing the squares, we were able to anticipate that the dots in figure 6 is 6 squared is equals to 36. In summary, the figures represent perfect squares: 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, and 5 squared dots. Each figure consists of dots disposed in a square form whose number equals the square of the figure. The next term in the sequence, figure 6, will have on your 6 squared is equals to 36 dots. This example illustrates how Polya's problem-solving strategy can be used to discover patterns in geometric shapes and predict future terms based on discovered relationships. Here is another example. Problem 2. You have 4 identical coins, and you want to know how many different ways you can place these 4 coins into 2 distinct boxes, box A and box B, where each box can hold any number of coins including 0. In applying the Polya's problem-solving strategy, the first step is to first understand the problem. The given is you have 4 identical coins and 2 boxes. This means that all 4 coins are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which coin goes into which box. The focus is on how many coins go into each box, not on the individual coins. These boxes are distinct from each other, meaning they are different in some way, like box A and box B. The number of coins in each box matters because the boxes are different, so putting 3 coins in box A and 1 coin in box B is a different distribution than putting 3 coins in box B and 1 coin in box A. What is being asked? The problem is to determine how many different ways you can distribute these coins between the 2 boxes. So you are tasked with figuring out how many unique ways you can assign 4 coins to 2 boxes. For example, you might place all 4 coins in box A or place 3 coins in box A and 1 coin in box B, and so on. You need to find all the possible combinations of how the coins can be split between the 2 boxes. The next step is to devise a plan. Start with a smaller number of coins in order to look for a pattern with this problem. The idea behind this is to simplify the problem by reducing the number of coins, making it easier to identify a pattern. Once we find that pattern, we can apply it to the larger, more complex problem with 4 coins and 2 boxes. In this case, let's start by considering a very simple example. 2 coins and 2 boxes. This smaller version of the problem will help us understand the concept before moving on to the original problem with 4 coins. 2 coins in box A while 0 coins in box B, 1 coin in box A while 1 coin in box B, 0 coins in box A while 2 coins in box B. Therefore, there are 3 ways to distribute the coins. The general pattern is that the number of ways to distribute n, which is the identical coins, into k, which is the boxes, is given by the stars and bars formula. Stars and bars is useful in many combinatorial problems, such as dividing coins, candies, or even distributing tasks among workers. When you have n identical coins and k boxes, the number of ways to distribute the coins can be determined using a formula known as stars and bars. It is a method for determining how many ways you can distribute identical items into distinct groups. It uses stars to represent items and bars to represent divisions between groups. So, based on our problem, the k represents the number of boxes in the formula. K minus 1 appears in the binomial coefficient because we are essentially determining the positions of the dividers or bars that separate the different groups of coins in the boxes. The formula can be interpreted as finding how to place k minus 1 dividers among the n coins to partition them into k distinct groups or boxes. n plus k minus 1, where n is the number of coins and k is the number of boxes. Looking at the results for 2 coins and 2 boxes, we begin to see a pattern forming. The pattern is about how many different ways you can split the total number of coins and into the given number of boxes, k. The third step is to carry out the plan. Now, apply the formula to the problem with 4 coins and 2 boxes. Using the stars and bars formula, we calculate ways is equals to 4 plus 2 minus 1 is equals to 5 and 2 minus 1 is equals to 1. Simply, the answer is 5. To summarize the solution, the n which represent the coins has 4 and the k which represent the boxes has 2. For the final step, review the solution. We can verify this by listing out the possible distributions. 4 coins in box A, while 0 coin in box B, 3 coins in box A, while 1 coin in box B, 2 coins in box A, while 2 in box B, 1 coin in box A, while 3 coins in box B, 0 coin in box A, while 4 coins in box B. Therefore, these are precisely the possible ways to distribute the coins. Therefore, the formula gives the correct answer and the pattern of placing coins in boxes is preserved. There are 5 ways to place the 4 coins in 2 boxes. Reviewing the solution and listing the possible distributions, we can confirm that the answer from the formula is correct. There are indeed 5 ways to place the 4 coins in the 2 boxes. The pattern and logic of the formula hold true, so the calculation is verified.
Hi, my name is Mary Rose, and now let's discuss about the guess and check. But before anything else, let's define what is guess and check. Guess and check strategy, according to Polya's problem-solving tool, is a very practical method that is based on an initial assumption or guess about the solution, which is then checked if it is indeed the given problem's conditions. If the guess isn't the right answer, you need to analyze the information and come up with a new one over and over again until a right solution is derived. So now, let's have an example. A number is increased by 7 and the result is 20. What is the number? So in applying Polya's strategy, the first step is we need to understand the problem. So, the given in that example or problem is a number is increased by 7 is going to equal to 20. So, what is being asked? And sa problem or example na yon, we are looking for the original number. So, second step in Polya's strategy is to devise a plan. Use the guess and check method by guessing a number, adding 7 to it, and checking if the result is 20. If not, adjust the guess and try again. So, the third step in Polya's strategy is to carry out the plan. So, let's try to guess what is number na kapag dinagdagan natin ng 7 is going to equal to 20. So, let's try 10. 10 plus 7 is 17. The result is not 20, so let's try a higher number. Next, let's try 15. 15 plus 7 is 22. So in this guess, the result is bigger than 20, so we have to try a smaller number. So let's try 13. 13 plus 7 is 20. And we got the correct answer. Or we got the original number that we are looking for na kapag dinagdagan ng 7 ay magiging 20. So, the step 4 in Polya's strategy is to review the solution. And to check our answer, we need to verify by substituting 13 back into the problem. So 13 plus 7 is 20. And this satisfies the condition set in the problem. So the number is correct. So if we are going to reflect in that example, guess and check was a great strategy for this problem. We were able to get the right number by trying numbers and adjusting our guess based on what we got. Through applying Polya's strategy and using guess and check method, we systematically found what number when increased by 7 will yield to 20. So let's try another example. A guitarist purchased a lot of guitar strings from various brands in one store. If brand X cost 1,000 pesos, brand Y cost 600, and brand Z cost 90 pesos, and he spent 11,960 and now has 90 strings overall, how many sets of strings did he get from various brands? So applying Polya's strategy, the first step is we need to understand the problem. So the given informations are the brand Z that cost 1,000 pesos, brand Y that cost 600 pesos, and the brand C that cost 90 pesos, plus the total cost of 11,960, and the total string purchase is 90. So next step is we need to devise a plan. So para mas maging organized, let's use X, Y, and Z represent the number of sets of strings purchased for brands X, Y, and Z, respectively. So X for sets from brand X, Y sets from brand Y, and Z sets for brand Z. So the third step in applying Polya's strategy is we need to carry out the plan. So we have to add the brand X, Y, and Z that equals to 90, which refers to the number of strings that the guitarist purchased. Then after, ilalagay natin yung presyo ng bawat string ng kada brand. So 1,000 pesos for brand brand X, plus 600 pesos from brand Y, plus 90 pesos for brand Z, and the total cost is 11,960. So let's try to guess. Let's try 2, 1, and 87. Sabihin na natin 2 sets of strings ang binili niya sa brand X, plus 1 set for brand Y, and 87 sets for brand Z. And that total of 90 sets of string. So, para malaman natin if sakto ba yung binili niya, we need to multiply yung hula natin sa presyo ng kada brand. So, since sinabi nating 2, 1, and 87, we have to multiply 2 times 1,000, 600 times 1, and 90 times 87, which refers sa string or sa set ng string. And the total cost is 10,430, and masyado siyang mababa and hindi sumakto sa kung ano yung nakalagay ron. So we need to come up with another number na magsasakto yung presyo. So let's try to guess another. So let's try 2, 4, and 84. 2 plus 4 plus 84 is equals to 90. So, kailangan nating ulit i-multiply yung hula natin sa presyo ng kada brand. So, 2 times 1,000 plus 1,000 times 2 is 2,000, and 600 times 4 is 2,400, Plus 90 times 84 is equals to 7,560 and the total cost is 11,960. And sakto. Ayan yung hinahanap nating presyo.
Indirect reasoning. Indirect reasoning, also known as proof by contradiction, is a mathematical technique used to prove a statement is true by assuming the opposite of the statement and showing that it leads to a contradiction. Steps for writing an indirect reasoning. Step 1. Assume the opposite of the conclusion, second half of the statement. Step 2. Proceed as if this assumption is true to find the contradiction. Step 3. Once there is a contradiction, the original statement is true. Step 4. Do not use a specific example. Use variables so that the contradiction can be generalized. Example number 1. The square root of 2 is irrational. Assume that the square root of 2 is rational. This means it can be expressed as a fraction p and q, where p and q are integers and q is not a zero. If the square root of 2 is p and q, then squaring both sides give us 2 equals p square root of 2, q square root of 2. Multiplying both sides by q square root of 2 gives 2q square root of 2 equals p square root of 2. This means p square root of 2 is an even number. If p square root of 2 is even, then p must also be even, since the square root of an odd number is odd. This means we can write p as 2k, where k is an integer. Substituting this back into the equation, 2q square root of 2 equals p square root of 2 gives 2q square root of 2 equals 2k square root of 2, which simplifies to q square root of 2 equals 2k square root of 2. This means q square root of 2 is also even, and therefore q must be even. We have shown that if the square root of 2 is rational, then both p and q must be even. However, this contradicts our initial assumption that the p and q have no common factors. Therefore, our initial assumption must be false and the square root of 2 is irrational. Example number 2. You are given a 5-liter jug and a 3-liter jug, and you have to measure exactly 4 liters of water. Using these two jugs, how would you do it? Number 1. Understand the problem. A 5-liter jug, jug 1, and a 3-liter jug, jug 2. What is being asked? Determine a way to measure exactly 4 liters using the two jugs. Number 2. Devise a plan. Use indirect reasoning working backwards to determine a sequence of steps that will lead to the desired outcome of 4 liters. Think about how could end up with 4 liters and work backwards to figure out the steps. Number 3. Carry out the plan. Step 1. First, let's determine the condition we are aiming to satisfy with 4 liters. We know one jug holds 4 liters. And we need to know how much goes into the second jug that we will find full or empty. Step 2. Next, consider possible ways of filling and or emptying jugs and reach a situation with the contents equal to 4 liters. Fill jug 2 completely and pour it into jug 1. Now, jug 1 3 liters, jug 2 0 liters. Empty the 5-liter jug 1 and pour the remaining 1 liter from 3-liter jug 2 into the 5-liter jug 1. Now, jug 1 1 liter, jug 2 equals 0 liters. Fill the 3-liter jug 2 again and pour it into 5-liter jug 1. Now, jug 1 4 liters, jug 2 is equal to 0 liters. Review the solution. Check the answer, double check the solution aligns with the problem description. You have 4 liters in the 5 liters jug 1 now. Reflect. The indirect reasoning was facilitated through thinking about the final state and working backwards to discern and must have been done. We could also make sure that this solution is most straightforward way of getting the 4 liters with the jugs. Number 1. Fill the 3-liter jug 2 and pour it into 5-liter jug 1. Number 2. Fill the 3-liter jug 2 and pour it into 5-liter jug 1 until the 5-liter jug is full. Number 3. Empty the 5-liter jug 1. Number 4. Pour the remaining 1 liter from 3-liter jug 2 into 5-liter jug 1. Number 5. Fill the 3-liter jug 2 and pour it into 5-liter jug 1. This leaves you with exactly 4 liters in the 5-liter jug.